Some shares. Good morning. This is our first animatronic live. Good morning, everybody. We are in the garage. Good morning. Good morning, Mims. I'll be in the park later, but we're doing an animatronic live. We've talked about doing this. We're gonna kick something off here. Let me see if I do this. For at least for now. Does that make it easier to read the chat? A little bit better, right? Good morning. That's better. So let me. This is so again. If you're just tuning in, this is a DIY. If you are wondering where the DIY comes from, this would be it. Thank you, James. If you're wondering where the DIY comes from, this would be it. These are DIY animatronic kits. They are servo driven. If you are familiar with an RC car, we're using these little servos here, and these are just the cheap ones, okay? These little servos here. If you look at my Instagram stories, I just posted something to drive the animatronic. Now, this guy here, this little Rizzo guy, is a few years old. It was made by somebody that worked with me in my old business. And what's going on inside his head essentially looks like this, at least as far as the mouth is concerned. And it is driven by a little servo that pulls here with like a wire to make the mouth move. Thank you, Thelma. Good morning. Good morning, Bonnie. And you plug it in to a controller and you give it power using this wire here, which I'm not really showing very well. And there's a lot of ways you can do that. There's a lot of ways you can do that. Now, the animatronics, excuse me, I'm just waking up myself and having coffee. I thought it would be good to do this in the morning if your kids are out there and your kids want to watch, because kids will love this. And these kits are on my website. And we'll slow roll this, right? Because I could come out here and throw a whole bunch of wild stuff at you. Good morning, D-Grab. I could throw a whole bunch of wild stuff at you, but we won't do that right now. But so the story goes, Walt went to Europe, and Walt found an animatronic bird toy, brought it home, thank you, Rob, gave it to his guys, and said, reverse engineer this, and let's develop this. That's essentially what we did. We found something that somebody else was doing, we liked it, we reverse engineered it, we completely redeveloped it to make it affordable. And what we do is this is essentially what we're talking about, okay? What we do is we take these 3D printed pieces and we put in these servos. And you have three ways that it moves, three different axes that it moves on, right? So it'll turn sort of around this cup. You can see the motor in there, okay? And then it'll go this way. It's your head tilt, right? And then we'll put one in here to make the mouth move. Just like this on the little guy. Because we developed, when we did this, and this all goes back to my old business, different sizes, different configurations, like these. So you could do something for Halloween. Hi, Laura. Right? And now you can make your own skull. And we develop these interlocking pieces here. So now you can take your mouth and you can click on different pieces and make it a skull or whatever else you want to make it. So we had developed all of this to teach kids how to do this, and this is what we were going to do in the mall. So here, morning, Vinny. Morning, Haley. I have fun with this stuff, right? Like I'm somebody that would hire somebody far more talented than me if I was actually making something like when we more talented than me made that. This is like a little something I threw together, right? A little arts and crafts thing. So imagine when, you give your kids one of these kits, or even for yourself, right? Like we all play with Legos, a little phenomena. And I had like found something online and almost made something that kind of, I guess, looks like a little Slinky Dog-esque, but like, it just having fun with it and making a little puppet. You can do something that level if you're capable of it, you know. By the way, this fur here is a shop rag. It is a shop rag with RIT dye. That's all that is. Thank you, Sarah. I was like, how do we get the Rizzo texture? I was like, just dye this shop rag. We were just standing around the table. This is, years ago. I'm like, what do we get for a Rizzo skin? So you could really have fun with it. And this is not for everybody, but I'm going to slow roll this because there's a lot here, and I hope you enjoy this. So looking at it from the perspective of animation, how do you drive something like this? There's different ways you can do this, right? The Tiki Room, those are pneumatic. We're using servos here, and these are, of course, very low grade, very affordable. You could drive it a variety of different ways. This board here that used to work would take an audio signal and then drive it, right? So I can hook this up essentially to the mouth and have it sing a song. There's 100 other ways I can do that. If you were talking about operating this more like a puppet, you could actually just use one of these like you would with like a car. Good morning, Chris, or an airplane, right? So when you think of something like E.T. or Gizmo and Gremlins, this is how they did it, right? Essentially, right? You would use these types of controls, this I/O, input, output, to drive stuff. Good morning, Keith. Good morning, Nadine. So a very brief recap if you're just tuning in, because I'm really trying to slow this down. I used to teach kids how to fix arcade games, and I used to do DIY classes and stuff, and we used to build stuff like this with 2,000 games in it that you plug into your television, and I used to teach classes on how to do that. So I always try to slow down when doing this because it can be a lot, especially if you're trying to get into it for the first time, and the idea is to introduce it to particularly kids for the first time, because a lot of this stuff connects in other ways to other industries, right? There's a lot of engineering behind all of this, not on my part, of course, but so there are ways to drive these puppets. This is a little tester. Good morning, everybody. And you plug it in with a 6-volt battery pack to this little tester here. That's in the kit, right, with the battery pack. You're going to use that really to move one thing at a time, because you're really not going to want to move 3 servos simultaneously, particularly in a puppet, right? You don't want this guy's mouth, his head and his neck all move, right? He can do this, he can do this, and he can talk. So you're not going to, with something like this, even though it's got these 3 channels, if you follow me when I say that, right? It's got the ability to plug 3 servos into it. You're really only going to want to use one at a time, unless you're doing the type of effect where that would work for you. So when you look at this stuff and how you drive it, it all depends on what you're trying to pull out of it. This thing's really cool. I'm going to show you all this working at some point, obviously. This actually lets me record actions up to 4 different motors. And I can control it, right? So he can play his guitar here. And I can just do that and throw it on a loop. You know, and they're noisy, but it doesn't matter. I mean, think of the Country Bears. You can hear that clicking, you know, and they just crank the volume. I mean, but this is all introductory level stuff. And the more money you throw at it, the better you can do with it. And I've got technology that allows you to do this at a theme park level, where you can actually have it run off of time control. And you can use computers to program and drive everything on a timeline. So let's look at making something move. I'm going to start here with his hand. There are 3, this is all, got some extension cords plugged in here. There are 3 wires. There's a red wire, there's a black wire, and there's a white wire. When you look at this battery pack, you only see 2 wires. You have a plus and a minus on the battery pack, and I'm trying to simplify this, right? So you have a plus and a minus on the battery pack. That gets you power. That white line right there is your control. That white line is actually going to send the data to the motor and move it. So when we plug that in here, and then we take our battery pack and we plug it up top, and that's plugged into number 4. Now, he's playing a guitar. If you're making a video and you wanted to drive something, you're going to probably have a lot more than that going on. Okay. But at the simplest level, you know, you're making something move, right? Okay. What's fun with this is I can now record that. And I always forget, like, the button configuration on this thing, so give me a second here. Stop it, switch it to play. Because the head's plugged in up there too. The head's already plugged in. So that's the base level. Yeah, it's on a loop. If I was driving it with this, you can imagine the potential, right? Because much like controlling a car, an RC car, an RC plane, or a boat, you have all of the range of motion, right? So then you have the limitations to pull and stop the motor wherever you want. I mean, I'm doing that here anyway. This is the part that I always, these buttons always, you gotta like hit them twice or something. There we go. You know, so I have the full range of motion. Okay. Let's throw the mouth in there. Just to give me an idea. It wouldn't really make sense to really drive the mouth this way, but for illustrative purposes. All right, so there's, hold on. This is Rizzo from the Muppets. We use this. If you go scroll back into my earliest videos, you will see the video that really started the growth on this account was called how to build your own Disney ride in just 5 steps. And then what we did is we built that ride out, and it was called Muppet Land. And Muppet Land was the story of Mickey and Minnie taking a day off to go on a perfect picnic, and Kermit and gang have to hold down the fort at Disneyland, and they take over. And so it was that, and then you go into the Haunted Mansion, and Rizzo was sitting in the Haunted Mansion, hanging out and having a good time. So, and this is, by the way, this is all pre-Muppet Haunted Mansion. So anyway, if I was to program this in the computer, of course, right? If I was to program this in the computer, you would have to start considering a lot of factors. Right now, we're just kind of messing around. But if you were programming this in a computer, you'd have to consider a lot of factors. You would have to consider, amperage, and you would have to consider the overall load. Because what happens is the more motors you use, the more power you need, right? And the more power you need, literally the more power you need, right? Where are you getting that power from becomes the question. So if you were packaging something to be remote, right? Let's think about something like those droids that are walking around now in Galaxy's Edge and Disneyland. Like, those have to be packaged. And what I mean by that is they need power on board. Okay? And they need enough power on board to sustain the movement. So then it just becomes a matter of what's it really going to take to drive it. So if you were building something on a much larger scale, those become the conversations, which for me is where it gets to become really fascinating. Now, total tangent, go back to Jabba the Hutt. If you think of Jabba the Hutt and Return of the Jedi, they weren't doing anything like this with Jabba the Hutt. Jabba the Hutt was built at full scale, and Jabba the Hutt had 8 little people in it. And these guys were all puppeteers, and you can go on YouTube and find the clips, and they were driving the whole thing themselves. They were literally inside of it, and it was one giant puppet, So there's 100 different ways to do things, You don't have to do it this way. But when you consider how simple it is to do this and the potential of what this really means, it's kind of cool. They use a lot of the stuff that I will show you down the line over at Universal, right? The boxes that I'm talking about, the computer control stuff, they use that at Universal these days. It's what I like to think of as prosumer grade at this point. So there are ways, and one of the things that was really cool about the business that I was building is there were going to be ways to integrate this into educational programs, because you're talking about starting to program things at a level that, again, feeds into other industries. And it's really kind of amazing. When you talk about robotics and stuff, obviously there's a medical side to that, and so on and so forth. So the STEAM and the STEM, that's really what this really is, right? Masqueraded with a Muppet. So again, all of this was modular. All of this is modular. These pieces simply click in, and you just use little screws. And it can all be done by hand. I use this, right? And put it all together. The kit, essentially, and again, you can go to the website and see this, is this battery pack. And it is every piece that it takes, from here to the mouthpieces, to the body, to the cup. And you can simply just mount this on a piece of PVC pipe, by the way, right? And you just, like this guy's just got a little wood base. He's just sitting on a little piece of pipe. Very, very simple. That's it. I mean, that's not it at all. But I mean, that's your introduction. But I really love to think of this as just a jumping off point for much bigger ideas, because this is very simplistic. When we found the design, when we found what other people were doing, it was very expensive. This stuff is 3D printed. This is only going to sustain so much. But because it's so affordable, it's very easy, if a piece breaks, just to to replace it. So it makes it kind of accessible, right? But again, robotics, it's not just theme parks we're talking about here. And then robotics, especially where we are now, robotics is bleeding into a ton of different industries. So this is just a jumping off point. There are things like Arduino and Raspberry Pi. Trying to see if I have any one of those floating around. If you're familiar with that, there are other things. Well, here's something kind of interesting, right? So when you start talking about some of this programming stuff, like this is a little circuit here that allows me to store audio on it. And if you see each one of those little tiny gold circles, that's I/O, that's input output. That's the equivalent of what we're doing here, right? It's what we're doing here. The difference is we talked about packaging, right? So now what I've got, if I've got a tiny lithium battery that I can plug into this module, and then I can use sort of a variety of different elements to trigger these, now I can have something of a different scale. Think about scale. Think about wearables. Again, this bleeds into other industries. I sound like a lunatic when I say this, but it's the truth because you have LED panels. Think about signs on the road for programming. You've got wearables. I mean, this is technology to make your clothing light up, right? You use a conductive thread, and now suddenly you can have push buttons in your shirt that could trigger lights on your shirt. So you could build a whole, if you really wanted to get into this kind of stuff, it's all the same. And this is an Arduino, by the way. And an Arduino allows you to do a lot of this stuff too. And again, when you talk about packaging, there's smaller versions of this if you were going to put it on your clothing, right? Maybe you want to make your own ears, and we can get to that point. I've found designs online to do it where you can make your own Epcot ears and put LEDs in them. Very simple stuff. But that's what we're talking about. And this, if any of your kids are into this stuff already, then I just want you to know that you have very smart children because this is very introductory level, but very, very savvy stuff. So and I bet you if your kids are into it, they know more about it than I do. And we did all this stuff. Like I said, we did all this stuff. And I got a lot more here. I mean, you can take it all the way. I mean, you can really, I'm trying to look for it. So this, I'll show you something. If you go back and you watch my old videos, if you remind me, James, we'll do the light up ears. We could do them together too. So if you go back and you look at my old videos and you see the ride that I was telling you about, there was a tiki room scene where we built a tiki totem with a bunch of tiki birds on it, and the top of the tiki totem was Sam the Eagle from the Muppets. This is essentially the kit that I'm and it's really, I'll show you the top later, but this is essentially the kit, right? Assembled. Different color pieces. We added wings, so now you had these actuators here that were driving the wings, so now the wings on the bird, let me see if I can do this better. So now the wings on the bird were flapping. The beak is still there, right? So, but this is exactly what the kit is. And you can see how easy, as silly as this beak looks, you can see how easy it is to just create something. That's just a piece of fabric, some styrofoam, a little spray paint, popped right on the end there, and we had a little bird beak, and then we built it up with some sponge foam and whatnot, and the wings were all feathers. And it's just, again, it's just very, very simple stuff. Once you mask it, like anything else in the entertainment business, once you throw a nice facade on it, it's irrelevant what's underneath. As long as it works. As long as it works. So that's kind of what we did. So what I will do, what we will do, and I'm trying to think how we would do this, but what we could do is we can build one together on a live if you all want to do that, you know. But I wanted to introduce you to it. It's a lot, I'm sure, already. But again, just want to kind of give you a sense of what it is and where it goes. What else do we have up here? I mean, this is all stuff from my old business. We have so many, and when you, I pulled this for me. When you get the kit, again, you get everything you need, right? So you get 3 motor packs. You get the screws and the horns. That's what you call these little pieces that actually, right here, right? That actually sit on top of the motor and move things. You get the controller and you get the battery. And it's on the website. It's very easy then at that point to go to my Amazon store. There is an animatronic page on my Amazon store. If you're looking to then level page on my Amazon store. If you're looking to then level up to stuff like this, you know, my thought is sort of I can give it some time. I don't know. We'll figure it out. And then if you all want to build one together, I'll just build one and then you can have that on replay. And if someone decides to order one, they can just go back and watch it. But it'll be fun on the next live to build one together. Really simple to do. A couple dozen screws, 3D printed parts. Everything is pre-drilled. So it's just little Bluetooth screwdriver. You're not talking about anything that I even think, you know, a 7-year-old could do. I really do. I used to teach kids how to wire strip, and they were like 6. I remember there was a real little kid, and she's sitting there with wire strippers, and we're talking about wiring up like control panels and stuff for arcade games. And I was like, look at this little kid go. So this stuff is really, 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 really basic. All right. If you have any questions, I will answer them. I think that's a lot of information for today and enough information for today. I will answer them for a minute here. I'll hang here. And again, it's kind of cool. I'll hang here. And again, it's kind of cool. I'm starting with the basic stuff. So that's what's available right now. But it would be very easy to then get into doing like the skeletons and all of that. And then when we get into the programming and I actually start to show you the boxes I'm talking about, as much as I wanted to bring it out here and set it up, it's a lot. Again, that's when you start introducing the computer and tracks. And now suddenly you have to have enough power to drive what? We were driving a couple dozen animatronics at once. And we were learning, oh, okay, we don't have enough power, you know? So my prior business was an arcade business. Good morning, Amber. My prior business was an arcade business. And then over time, as it evolved, it became an entertainment facility. And then after the entertainment facility, we were building a new location that was going to be more and more educational driven because I was doing all of those other things that I was just telling you about. And when the pandemic hit, we had time on our hands. So we built that ride. If you go back, there's a playlist called Muppet Land. If you go look at that playlist, you can kind of see the first video and the evolution of all this stuff here. But so basically that was that, right? So the old business evolved, pandemic hit, and then we started developing this stuff for the new business. But it never actually fully manifested because we never opened. So from arcades to animatronics, which is actually the story of Nolan Bushnell. If you know who Nolan Bushnell is, Nolan Bushnell created Atari, right? Computer Space and then Pong. And then he went on to create Chuck E. Cheese. What he saw happening was he was selling arcade games. Arcades were so popular back then. He was selling arcade games to his clients and watching his clients make far more money off of them than he was in manufacturing and selling the arcade games. So he decided to open up Chuck E. Cheese so he could actually make the kind of money that his clients were making off of his arcade games. games. So Nolan Bushnell not only created Atari, but created Chuck E. Cheese. And then he sells Atari to Warner, as in Warner Brothers, Time Warner. And they want nothing to do with Chuck E. Cheese. So he buys it back after selling Atari to Warner. Then a bunch of the guys that were working for Nolan go over to Warner, are building games for Warner, or creating games for Warner, and they don't like it over there. They defect and create Activision. So there's a very kind of cool overlap between the birth of video games and arcade games and animatronics. Great question, Bree. This board here will do exactly what you're talking about. You cannot get this board anymore, and unfortunately, this board isn't working anymore. I am trying to source a solution, an economical solution. So if you wanted to do audio driving at a base level, this would have been it. You met him recently. This would have been it. So I will find something, Bree. At one point, I was trying to remanufacture these myself, and I could because the plans are around. So I will gladly stay on top of that, okay? That would be the base way. You can obviously do it through the computer. There are boxes out there that are maybe like $100 that'll do it for you. But this would have been probably, I think, about a $45 solution at the time. Maybe a little bit more. So, it's for me, it's just about, if you want to do something like that, I can send you a link. But it's going to be about $100. So at some point, if I can find a good solution, even from, Alibaba or somewhere overseas, I would pick up a bunch of these. So that's what I'm on the hunt for. I made Rizzo talk with power. That's probably not my handwriting, Amber. I guarantee you that's not my handwriting. And if it is, that was a very good day. Although that might be my handwriting, actually. If you're talking about wrenches. Hi, Chelly. So there you go, folks. That's it. Any other questions? A little video game history peppered in there. Oh, I don't know. Some of that stuff's probably not my handwriting. What do those wrenches look? Those are just 3D printed parts. Those are indeed not wrenches. You can clearly see that I have not updated the inventory. Fun stuff. There are... Here. Let me do this really quick. Just talking about ways to drive things in my Amazon page, which has other options. I think this is on there right now. If not, I will add it. But another way to do it, right? This will drive 6 servos. This is what they consider this a tester. You can see we mounted it to this little board here. I had it clamped down just now. But you can use this at an introductory level just to get going. And if you were talking about making a video and just using this like a puppet, this is about, what, $12, $13 board, I think. So there are ways to do this that are very, very cost effective. Just depends how you're implementing. I will show you more. It's really along It's really along the same lines as RC cars. Again, these motors here are no different than what you would find in a radio-controlled toy car. So when I talk about how this sort of has different ways that it overlaps into other areas, there are many. So a lot of fun. It's on the website. And if it's not, then, but I'm pretty sure it's on the website. But I less about that and more about this. It'll be fun to build one. If you go to my stories, I have a little clip. And that's it. 3D printed parts, toy servos, 6-volt DC battery packs. That's all we're working with here. Okay. Mostly self-taught. The RC car side of it, when I was growing up, so you all know Nick, I did get my points. Thank you so much. But they made me bring all my boxes back. Can you believe that? Which was not a big deal. I was prepared for it. But so the RC car side of it all was introduced to me as a kid through Nick. Nick and I, growing up, would hang out in his basement while he was tinkering with his RC cars. I didn't do anything with it, but I would watch and I was fascinated by it. And I was fascinated with puppetry. So then Nick and I would build stuff like models, and we would blow stuff up and make like little mini movies growing up. Like, we very much had overlapping interests. And as I got older and I learned more and more about this stuff and then saw it again because I knew what he had done when we were kids, it became very, very easy to wrap my head around, right? And then I learned about the higher level stuff that we'll get to at some point. The boxes, I keep calling them the boxes. But then I learned about that stuff when I was building this new location. And so it's again all self-taught. There's a lot of stuff out on YouTube, just like my arcade business. I'm self-taught. I did not know anything about arcade games. Okay, so if you want to see what's behind me here, let's do this. I didn't know anything about arcade games, but I learned that, I've known Nick since the 3rd grade, but I learned everything that I know about arcade games, first from YouTube and then from an older guy that worked on it forever. But I'm over here right now, not that I have the time, took this monitor out of this arcade game, and this is a Marvel vs. Capcom, so this is Disney related. Okay, and I have to fix this monitor. My favorite arcade game is right there. It's Tempest. And then if you really want to talk about Chuck E. Cheese, there's a Chuck E. Cheese Whack-A-Mole right there, okay? So, and an Indiana Jones back there you saw. So, again, arcade games, animatronics, theme parks, there is an overlap. They all work, yeah. They all work. How long does it take to print the parts? So that's a great question. Some of these parts take a couple hours to print. Some of these parts take a few minutes to print. The longest part to print is this part, and this, I believe, takes over 2 hours. I believe. It's been a while. I did a run of these parts a couple months ago. No, I don't come down and play with them. There's a lot more arcade games behind me than that, but I'm not prepared to show you the rest of the garage yet. If you want to just, since we're here, since we're having shop class, right? Because I love this stuff. This is the back of that monitor. This is called a chassis. If you remember the I Love Lucy episode where she took apart the TV and she got inside the TV because she wanted to do the commercial, was that Vita Vita Vegemin? Depends on how you use it, James. Battery pack's going to come down how you use it. If you remember that, she took apart the television, she went inside. Like, she could have got electrocuted, right? She took all those parts apart. She did not have to do that. You saw the TV monitor on the ground? All Lucy had to do was pull the TV monitor out. She did not need to take every single part of that thing apart. She could have gotten very, very hurt. Okay? Because the back of that monitor, even if it hasn't been plugged in for 5 years, the back of that monitor has enough shock in it to knock you off your feet and possibly kill you, even if it hasn't been plugged in. Your brother built his own computer with thousands of arcade games. I love that. I showed you something earlier we used to teach. So anyway, I digress, but the back of this goes on the neck, and this is the chassis, and this little cup, goes up top. That's where that charge is going to get you, okay? And that's what you have to fix on the back of that tube. Are we doing Animal Kingdom tomorrow? I don't know. I was going to ask you all, do we want to do an Epcot week? We talked about an Epcot week. Should we kick off Epcot week tomorrow? This is... No, we could do both, Amber. I mean, we could pepper that in. I don't think anybody thinks Epcot week means a week of Epcot forever. This is a Revolution X board. You're welcome, Sean. Thanks for taking a photo. Aerosmith, Rev X. I'm now turning this into an impromptu arcade class. You put what's called an edge connector on here. This particular connection here is called JAMA. JAMA is an arcade standard. If you saw that Tempest a minute ago that was sitting to the side of that Marvel versus Capcom, that Tempest is called dedicated. This JAMA is a universal format. December 5th, Bree. So JAMA allows these boards to swap. They use ROMs. So these are ROMs, right? You have ROMs on there. And what's cool is... I did not expect to do an arcade class, but I love it. This Ninja Turtles here, that's actually a RoboCop cabinet, okay? And that is a 2-player Ninja Turtles gym. But if I were to reprogram one of the ROM chips in it, it would very quickly become a 4-player Ninja Turtles. That is an empty Donkey Kong back there. I have about 5 of those behind me that I can't show you because there's stuff covering them. That's Rizzo from the Muppets. That's not a kangaroo, but I could see that. So there you go. But it's fun. It's the overlap. And by the way, I didn't plan to show you all this extra stuff, but there's so much going on in this garage. It's very easy just to talk about something and then have visuals, right? So these are tiki birds. A little scary at that front, sorry. At that close. These are like these little tiki birds. Those beaks are 3D printed. They are very much the same thing as what this is. You know, but you can do whatever your imagination wants you to do. I mean, it's like, it's really simple stuff. That's just foam and some cut up felt. I didn't make these either. You know, it's just hard to do this with this kind of, with TikTok and that shot. All right. Yeah, those mouth. The only thing on those that move is the mouth. Yes. Here. Let's see. Just kind of throw that there. It's a little disturbing that close, but work with me for a second, okay? So then if I take this and plug it in here. So now this is a slightly different color cable. That orange is our white and that brown is our black, okay? And then you have to look really closely. I don't know if you can see there what it says. But negative is on the bottom, black is negative. I haven't turned this thing on in forever. This mouth may be broken. Well, it's kind of there. It needs to be fixed. Yeah, Rizzo moves. So here. That's how easy it is. That was sitting over there. I did not plan to introduce that to you, but it's practically plug and play. I do, Justin. I do. I used to have practically plug and play. I do, Justin. I do. I used to have hundreds of them. I only have a bunch left. I have a missile command I'm trying to get rid of. We did. If you go way back, we did a Tiki Room video. It's on YouTube. It's on Instagram. No, excuse me. It's on TikTok and it's on YouTube. If you want, we can build a little Tiki Room together. We can do it here in the garage. We can introduce some birds and we'll figure it out together. That's kind of the fun of it for me. But that's my introduction. Again, you see how easy it is? It's just simply a battery and a control. Really simple stuff. Again, you talk about packaging, really, really simple stuff. I used to sell 6 of these a week, these kits, back in LA when I was doing nothing. This is when the business was kind of on the bubble. And I was just sitting at home making these TikTok videos. This is before I even had 40,000 followers. And I used to sell, this was the DIY days, right? And I built a fog screen and we projected in my backyard a fog screen, all sorts of stuff if you go back and look at that. So, all right. That's when you first started watching me. Thank you. That's cool to hear. Good morning, Billy Joe. All right, everybody. You're welcome for the introduction. I will see you soon. I'll be out there later this evening. I still got to pack orders and prizes. And then we can continue the Epcot Week conversation later today. You're welcome. Yeah, I'm trying to get back into doing weekends. I'm just trying to get everything else done. I got to pull a bunch of content later. I got to get Monty content so he can do replays. You know. No, it didn't sound creepy. I appreciate it. It was fun. So if you were watching back then, I used to do lives with a whole bunch of animatronics behind me, Animal at the keyboard playing. So there was a lot more to this. I'm just kind of reintroducing. There's so much editing, Grant, and there's never enough time. And then the other day, Grant, I posted a video to Instagram that I was like, I've been waiting a week to post. It was the DuckTales carousel. I posted, I logged back into Instagram and I dropped like 8 followers. And I go, well, I guess I should have waited longer to post that video. So it's always something. Love that, Valentina. Enjoy your first Lego kit. Good morning, Kayla. I love that, Bree. Good morning, Ryan. Thank you, Grant. Good for you, Noreen. Good for you. We should chat. Thank you, Juan. I will be in the parks later, yeah. That's a different live for a different day, Amber, because they're all still in bags. Amber, let me phrase it to you this way. I need to see all the Lego sets I got. I haven't even unpacked them yet. I think we're going to do Phantasmic later. I think that's the thought. I mean, that's where I'm leaning, just because I don't know what time I'm going to get out there. Thank you, Liz. Thank you for that. Hear me out, Joe Coconut. I mean, listen, Joe's been with me. Joe Coconut's been with me for a long time. He could go all the way. Well, okay, so here's the other thing. Then I realized I didn't get the Winnie the Pooh set, but the Winnie the Pooh set sold out, but it's on sale. So I had like a whole moment there, and then I said enough is enough, and I drew the line. I said I'm not logging on to the website. Absolutely, Bree. Instagram. Have I ever built an animatronic Joe? So, great question. There is somewhere back here behind me a puppet that we a very so there have been many puppet versions of Joe. There's the one I built with the Muppets. Then there's the one that the same guy that built this built for me. In my house, there is a Joe that slides over, one of these things, one of these guys. But he's a little too heavy for this. You have to use a stronger, it would have to be a stronger version of this because he's bigger. But there's one that's designed to be both a hand puppet and an animatronic. It's more like a puppet where you animate the mouth using this kind of stuff. So, and then I also in the house, which is you're not going to see it on a live, but you will see on Joe's page is a full size Joe Coconut mascot costume, which is on Joe's TikTok. What's going on here? We were doing an animatronic live. I was showing you how you can very easily control what's plugged in here. A little guy like this using 6 volts and some really, really affordable technology. Again, this is a nice little way to program this stuff too. It's a little more costly in terms of control goes, but at an introductory level, with these kits, you get this, which is just enough to get you started. You can go to my Amazon page. You can find this kind of stuff on my Amazon page. Go to my website, click on the tile, da-da-da-da. But it's on my Amazon influencer storefront. There's a whole DIY section. And that is it, folks. I will see you later. Thank you so much for allowing me to share this stuff with you. As like all of these other little ancillary things we do, like the book club and all of this and the podcast and everything, I like doing these little tangents. Bonnie, everybody's kind of leaning towards an Epcot week, so we will talk later tonight. Maybe we'll even do a vote tonight at Fantasmic. How's that sound? But it's always fun to kind of do these little tangents, and I love technology. I'm a gadget geek. I showed you all these fun little boards. I mean, I've done stuff where I've taken, and I started making a video on this, where I took the Happy Meal toys, and then I added like a little RFID puck to them along the lines of what's in your Magic Band. So when you tap them on your phone, it launches Disney Plus to your TV with the movie tied to the toy. So there's lots of fun stuff we can do here. And it all sounds a little crazy, but in the spirit of Figment. In the spirit of Figment. So, all right. And then you get into packaging again. Something like this is all you need to plug your servos into. So it's really, really simple stuff, all right? Thank you, Bunny. Thank you so much. I have worked for Disney. I used to fix rides at Disney for a very, very brief period of time. So there's an old video of me doing that. I was going to make another video of me doing that. It's all just comes down to time. But yeah, it's fun, right? So here's one last tangent I'll go on. Here's what's really fun with NFC technology. When you go up to check in at Disney with your phone, you see a lot of people kind of hold their phone up to the touch point. I need visuals. People hold their phone up to the touch point like this, right? They go up and they're like, and it doesn't work. The top of your phone, is where the NFC is located. The chip is located. So when you go up to a touch point at Disney, all you need to do is do this, and it's a very light tap. Okay, the NFC technology has. Bonnie, I'm just going to leave it up to the community. I know you're looking forward to AK, but I will defer to the community. So nothing's been decided yet. Nothing's been decided yet, and I haven't decided. But I do like to defer to the community, and people were kind of excited about that. So we'll see. Let's get the Phantasmic first. But again, so that NFC technology then allows you to do lots of really cool things, and it's really base level programming. You can just use an app to program it. It's modular programming. It's less sophisticated than the Arduino. When you get into these Arduinos here, you download a program on your laptop or whatever, and they have these pre-baked programs that you then upload to this, and then it allows to play back. Good morning, Amanda. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Tweety. So when you get into the robotics side and the bigger programming of it all, Arduino technology, stuff like that, still introductory. But again, if your kid's already into that stuff, good for you, because I wish more were. All right. I'll see y'all soon. Thank you, Tweety.